let's stay with that story now. Parliament's Mineral Resources Portfolio Committee Chair, Sahlulele Luzipho, joining us now. And you will recall in our previous conversations, he has been calling for the deployment of the military, certainly to assist in some way or the other, including a special unit that will deal with zamazamas and illegal mining in the country. Chairperson, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. Is this the plan that you would have envisaged? Do you think the plan will work?
Good evening to you, TM, and your viewership. Look, yes, we think that we have made a call. We never talked about an employment of a new unit or a new team. We talked about the deployment, including consideration of the deployment of the army. Because in our view, is that the issues that relate to illegal mining amount to a threat to national security, and the only arbiter in situations of that nature is the army. And we think that we must welcome the initiative by the president in ensuring that the protection of lives becomes the first thing, but also the protection of the country's economy is also a matter that must take high priority.
Yeah, and why you mentioned that, because that would have been my next question, the expenditure itself, which I suppose is something that yourself as the portfolio committee, you need to watch. In this case, it's not really in your ambit because your mineral resources, it's within the South African National Defence Force, but I suppose as the National Assembly, as the body that watches the works of the executive, an expenditure of this nature, do you think is warranted when you compare it to the kind of economic impact that this is having?
I hope we still remember that we said that is close to almost more than 40 billion that is required to effectively deal with illegal mining. We talked about the fact that the loss of lives can be equated to the value of the rand. And any person, the lives that have been lost, the manner in which communities are sitting under a reign of terror, imposed curfews and other things by criminal syndicates. I think South Africans, we must also appreciate the fact that we are not talking about an extraordinary exercise. The army is part of South African, is the army of South Africa. For us as members of parliament, for an example, where I am now, I'm conducting public hearings. There's an expenditure that is going to be incurred. So if the expenditure is incurred in the process of performing the task that is in the best interest of South Africans, I think we must be quite reasonable. Remember also we have said, part of the problem that we are having, it will take almost 17 or more years to close the derelict ownerless mines. In terms of the ages report, it says it will be 69 years. So at the end of the day, we must ask the question, is there value for money? I'm saying if the army is able to eradicate the crisis that we are having now, then the value for money, it must be appreciated.
Armored personnel, highly trained, highly organized, is but a temporary solution. They're only going to be there for 6 months from this deployment. The long-term solution is always said to be one of a socio-economic intervention, that these mines are there. Certainly, there's some gold that still remains. It's not profitable for big companies to continue to run the mine, but for small communities, they certainly look at this as some economic opportunity. And there needs to be a serious working and thinking around how do you formalize that space.
Look, let's first agree on one thing. In terms, if you look in the report of the portfolio committees, including the 3 portfolio committee oversight, one is the issue that relates to the visits that we have undertaken in some of the provinces, together with the portfolio committee on police as well as home affairs. One of the things we have said is that you can't have a one-size-fits-all solution. Second, we have argued that it can't be a matter of one department that can take responsibility. We look at this intervention as part of the multi-pronged strategy that seeks to deal and eradicate completely the issue of illegal mining. For an example, the point that you are raising, we have said the MRE, please fast-track the process of artisanal small-scale mining. We have raised issues of the harmonization of the legislation. The question of the army comes in on the violent side of illegal mining activities that are taking place, to say our communities should not live in fear. Our communities must be protected. Our communities must feel that there is a state and the state is prepared to come and be the last wall of defense. And the last wall of defense obviously is the army. And we see the question of this intervention as one amongst many. And we are not, like we have said initially, we still hope and feel and wish that the Department of Police will be able to look on the issue of a specialized unit that could be a seasoned and well-established one, and at a point in time where there is a need from time to time to request the interventions of the army, those interventions will be within the ambit of that specialized unit. So we're not looking at this intervention as one size fits all or as an alpha and omega solution to the crisis. There is a lot of work that still needs to be done to address the crisis of illegal mining, including strengthening and making sure that we improve the law with regard to the criminal justice system. Yeah,
improving and strengthening the law is of course, a good place to start. And one could turn and look at you and say, well, as a portfolio committee, the last time you said to us, you're having difficulty even tracking these owners or previous owners of these mines. How are you tightening up that end of the stick to be able to also hold them accountable?
One of the things we've said is that we must also understand, even if you were to find them, let's be honest, I mean, we must not say what people want to hear, but we must say what are the facts and the reality. The reality of the situation is that at the time when these mining companies were undertaking these operations, there was no law that compelled them to do what we call rehabilitation. It's only in 2004, 2006 when you came in with the MPRDA, which created conditions for financial provisions, which then takes into effect the issue of a responsibility for rehabilitation. But one of the things that we have said was that even currently operational mines that are highly affected, especially the gold industry, they spend about 2 billion rands per annum trying to deal with and combat the effects and the consequences of illegal mining. One of the things, if you recall, we have said is that we should not move from a premise of liability. We should move from a premise of patriotism and responsibility to say, yes, we agree you may not be liable, but with the effects and the consequences of those derelict and ownerless mines, can you assist and join the process of making sure that we deal with the rehabilitation of the derelict and ownerless mines? Well, unfortunately, at this stage, we can't come back and say we've got answers. We still want to engage with some of these companies so that they can assist and help government. Because with the little amount that is allocated for the rehabilitation of the derelict and ownerless mines, it is quite clear that we are fighting a losing battle. So I agree with you in relation to ensuring that there is participation, but the reality is that the law does not apply retrospectively. You can't create a law in 2006 and say it must have effects from the date when mining started to take place in this country. Unfortunately, you won't win that case in court because, as I said, the law does not apply retrospectively. So we must try and persuade and say to some of these people, can you be patriotic enough, especially if those are South African companies, assist government and the state to deal and eradicate the crisis that comes as a result of illegal mining due to issues of derelict and ownerless mines.
Chairperson, as always, a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for coming on, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources. That's Sahlulele Luzipho.